When Aline arrives by car and parks it, she finds a washer who asks if he could wash hers. She says he could, but is interrupted by her brother Pedro, who says no, saying that she couldn't let a guy like him wash her car. Aline asks Pedro to calm down and confirms again that the washer could wash her car, but her angry brother again says he wouldn't wash anything, because he would scratch the whole car, but his sister tells him to stop doing that. And says that the car really needed it, because it is very dirty, and gives his authorization for the washing machine to start. Hours later, when the worker was finished, Aline arrives and is very happy to find the car very clean and praises the work of the washer. He is happy that she liked it and says he had said it worked well. Aline says that she really needed cleaning, reaching out to pay him for the service. The worker takes the money and worried says he didn't have change, and Aline asks him not to worry, because he didn't need change and that money was to be with him. The washer thanks her, and she goes to get in the car. Days later, while he was sitting, he sees Dona Aline arriving and asking permission to sit next to him, saying he was waiting for his brother who worked there. The worker asks if she accepts a banana. Aline, hungry, accepts and asks what his name is. And the washer responds Jonathan, and Aline says it was a pleasure, soon and interrupted by her brother who arrives asking what was she doing there. Her sister asks for calm and says that she was sitting waiting for him. Dissatisfied with the company her sister was in, Aline asks Pedro to stop, who was the one who had sat next to Jonathan, and says that he was very polite and had even given her that banana, asking if her brother wanted it. Pedro knocks his sister's hand down, says that the banana was dirty and poisoned and that he couldn't trust a guy like that. Jonathan catches the attention of Aline's brother, saying that he had won the fruits. Pedro says he doesn't want his sister near him, and orders Jonathan not to get close to her anymore, pulling Aline. When they get home, Aline asks her brother if that was really necessary. Annoyed that his sister keeps talking about it, Pedro says he was just saving his life as he was seeing the kind of people she was mixing with. But Aline says that none of that justified what he had done, and that he couldn't treat a human being that way, and says that she doesn't even want to imagine their parents seeing Pedro have that attitude, still thinking it was right. Her brother says that his parents would be very proud of him for saving her life from being around those disgusting street people. Aline starts to say a few words, but feels sick, but her brother ignores her, saying he wanted to have dinner, and leaves her alone. Days later, Jonathan sees Dona Aline again and asks if she wanted him to take his car again. She says he can if he didn't have many cars to wash, but Jonathan denies, saying that he could wash him, and then Aline gives the money for the service, because she didn't know if she would find him here later, so it was better to leave it paid. Washing, Herman agrees and takes the money that was the same amount as the other time, and says that she paid so well, and Aline ends up saying that Jonathan was supposed to buy something, saying goodbye and leaving to work. Months later, they meet again on the street, Aline bringing a lunchbox, and saying it was for him, and she knew there was no time for him to have lunch with the rush, and Jonathan thanks her for bringing it. Aline sits next to him and says that it was good that he had a lot of cars to wash, and asks if everything was okay. Jonathan answers yes, working a lot with a lot of cars to wash these days, and had made a good money, sees him there every day fighting, but says that she was there to be able to apologize for the way Pedro had treated him, because Jonathan, I didn't deserve to go through that. The washer accepts the apology, so she asks Jonathan to talk a little about him. Wondering if he lived near here. He responds by saying that he lived on the street. Aline asks if he didn't have friends or anyone else to help him. Jonathan replies that he didn't have any friends, and all the time he worked to be able to eat. She is dismayed by the story. She knew he was a dedicated person, always doing things with love, and asks if he had any dreams in life. The washer replies that his dream was to be a doctor, but it was a very difficult thing to do. Seeing him discouraged, she asks him not to give up on his dreams, because everything was just fighting, and she knew that Jonathan had a lot of potential, because he had chosen to do good. He confirms by saying that he would try not to give up. Aline looks at the clock and says that this time is given, which was normally the time when she got home, when she lies down and takes a shower and thinks about her day, and she really liked this part of the day when it started to get dark, and the worker says that she also liked this time a lot, since as she lived on the street she arrived and lay down looking at the stars, and that it was very beautiful. Aline agrees and takes her bag, because it was time for her to leave soon. She starts to feels sick, saying she couldn't breathe, and passes out in Jonathan's arms. Desperate, he tries to wake her up, and when she doesn't wake up, he starts screaming for help. In the hospital waiting room, Jonathan and Pedro wait for the doctor with news about Aline, so when the doctor arrives asking for her family, Pedro gets up confirming that he was. The doctor waves and starts saying that the patient had suffered a heart attack and she had a serious heart problem and would need a family member to stay with her there, as she would be under observation for 5 days or more. In disbelief, Aline's brother says that it was a long time for him and that he had a lot to solve. Jonathan interrupts the conversation saying he could stay. The doctor asks for calm and informs his brother that Jonathan had brought his sister and that without him Aline would have died. Pedro accuses the car washer of having poisoned, and that he just didn't hit him because they were in the office, ending up retreating when the doctor asks to calm down and leaves. He finishes explaining that Jonathan couldn't stay because he wasn't family and guides Pedro to the office to talk. Months later, without Aline showing up since the day he took her to the hospital, Jonathan is worried, wondering what could have happened to her, and is approached by a woman who calls his name and introduces herself as Aline's lawyer, and asks if she can kindly he might escort her to her office. Jonathan finds it strange and says that Aline's brother didn't like him, but the lawyer interrupts him saying that the matter was with him, so he accompanies her. At the office, Jonathan asks where Aline was and why she didn't come today. The lawyer replies that unfortunately, she had passed away, and he starts crying and says that he should have stayed with her in the hospital. The lawyer asks him to calm down and says that Aline had left him a letter and asks him to feel free to read it. Jonathan thanks her and takes Aline's letter to read as soon as the lawyer leaves. In the letter, Aline asks how he was and hoped that Jonathan was okay, and explains if he was reading that letter and why she had left, then says that she was leaving her apartment for him, along with her share of the company, because she knew that he was the best person to take care of her and that he could go to the medical school he dreamed of so much and thus be able to help people, and he hoped that he and his brother would understand each other, and as Jonathan had a big heart, he would be able to change the heart of Pedro. Asking to be well, she ends the letter with a farewell. Jonathan starts crying again.